Hey, welcome back to my deck. Today we're going to work on doing some extruded patterns in a keychain. It's kind of like the starter to get you rolling, and once you start doing these extruded patterns, it's kind of like doing puzzles or something. It's just kind of a really relaxing, fun, keeps your brain busy kind of thing without overtaxing it. My kind of project. So let's get started, okay? What I normally do is I take and extrude the pieces of clay that I want. I used to try to extrude really long pieces, but that's kind of silly because you only use short pieces, and the longer it is, the more gravity is going to pull that and make it thin when you pick it up. So I typically extrude between 12 and 14 inches. I put them on wax paper because when I'm working on larger projects like ornaments, it might take me several hours to a day to do them. So let's start with this. And I'm going to start with doing just a little coil first. I start the coils in my fingers like this. It's going to break a little bit on the end there. There we go. And once I get the coil started, I set it down and just roll it here on my mat to the size that I want. Let's start about right there. And then I'm going to cut here and go back the other way. I'm going to attempt to make something like my sample here, which is fresh hot out of the oven. We'll see. Might be a little bit too big, huh? Okay, I think we can work with it. So we have a double coil now. I'm going to move that into, yeah, it's going to be fine. There we go. So we're going to start our piece like that. Now we're going to start our fill-in. I use my craft blade for this. So let's start. I'm going to cut this here and bring it around. And see, I cut at an angle so I can work that piece in there. I lay it in place. I can take my blade and push that back in. There we go. Now I'm going to cut that right there. Oh, I chipped my nail polish too. Oh. Now I can push that piece in. There we go. And a lot of times you can take your fingers and just stretch it in where you need it to go. All right. We're on a roll now. Next piece, same thing, cut an angle. You know, if you cut the wrong angle, don't spend a lot of time trying to make it work. Just cut a new one. I find myself sometimes, you know, like, this is the last piece of clay I'll ever have and I have to make this work. You don't have to do that. Just cut a new one. Just keeps wanting to pop up on me, doesn't it? There we go. All right. And let's see. Do we need one more before we do a long one? Maybe. Let's see what we can do here. Once again, I'm cutting that at the angle so that I can fit it in there. Yeah, let's do one more. Oh, I'm going to do something fancy on here too. There we go. You can see how we're doing. Now, because I have these long rows here, I'm going to go ahead and take my etch and pearl and just kind of do a texture on one of these. And they do tend to pop up on you when you do your texture. There we go. Nice. Okay. I'm happy with that. And let's see, we're going to bring one long piece over before we put in our next purple piece, okay? I always like to get the sections all nice and smooth before I do the next one. Now I can bring that up in that corner, can't I? Looks like I can. Hey, get back in there. It's a little cool and damp out here this morning, so my clay's kind of not wanting to stick. There we go. Let me use this to push this back in. All right. Now, you see this little, it's a triangle void there that is too small to put a string of clay in. So what I do is I make a ball of clay. You can make 1, 2, 3, 4, how many small balls you want to fill the pattern. But I'm just going to drop a big piece in there, take my etch and pearl, and push it in. And if I had a piece of paper, I could take my paper and kind of push on it too. That would help it fill the spot. Now that's not really going to fill it, is it? Let's pull it out. Let's put some couple small ones in there. I think we can fill it better that way. I'll be happier, won't you? Okay. You see, I just kind of tumble them in there, and then I can take my etch and pearl and kind of guide them where I want them to go. There we go, and our void's filled. And we didn't have to pull our hair out trying to make a little tiny piece to go in there. Now let's add our second swirl down here at the bottom. Once again, once I get this started, I set it down and use my fingers to roll it on my mat so it stays relatively flat. I like the mat particularly for doing this because the clay slides across it, which it doesn't do when it's on paper. Now, let's see. We're going to bring this up this way. Oops, a little bit too big, too big, too big. There we go. Okay. Now when you cut your piece, like I said, you can take your finger and push it just a little bit to slide it in and stretch it just a tiny bit to fill that little tiny gap for you, okay? And we're just going to fill in our pieces over here now. And I'm going to start on this side so that I get kind of a corresponding thing. You could fill it in so it all goes this way, but I prefer to get the motion of going in different ways on here. Okay, that's a good cut for that spot, I think. No, I want a little bit sharper angle on it. Oh yeah, that'll work. Okay, get that in there. Work it in. Nope, I don't like that piece. See what I mean about don't sit here and try to make it work, just cut another one. And yeah, you end up with all these little pieces on your work table. If you're working on a larger project, you want to try to keep those pieces contained because you don't want to accidentally pick a piece up and get it pressed into your work. But that's what you use to roll your little ball, so it doesn't go to waste. You know, there's no waste in clay. We use everything. Okay, let me cut my angle better here. There we go. Oh yeah. Once again, I'm just kind of pushing to stretch it just a tiny bit to fit into the gaps. Okay. I think we could get maybe one more piece in there. Maybe two. I don't know. Are we feeling lucky today? This is a really small piece to work on, but it is possible. Let's see if I can get that in there. Nope, too short. Cut another one. Let's start with a new piece. You see, I'm cutting this so that it's not as long. Once again, you don't want the gravity of it to pull it down and make your cords a little bit thinner. There we go. Okay, Now this piece over here, I'm going to see if I can do that super thin cut that I did on the other one that worked out really well. You know, by myself, of course it's going to work, but when I do it on camera, it's not going to. Oh, I think it's going to work. Ah, see, one of those little pieces just jumped in there when I did that. Okay, now all we had to do is just put a little dot in there. Ha! And let's see if we can get one more piece over here. Now, do we want it to go that way or that way? I think I want it to go the same way as we were working before. You do have to make some decisions on this, but they're not monumental decisions. Like I said, it's kind of like putting a puzzle together. And I never start with an established pattern. This is unusual that I'm trying to copy something that I already had, but you can see that it's going astray already. Okay, let's add some purple over here. 3 small dots again to fill that triangle. And you'll notice that I'm just kind of like dropping these in. I'm not being overly cautious with them. That's because I've got some small rhinestones out here that I'm going to add in there too. So this is basically just to fill the gap so you can't see the metal underneath before I put the rhinestone on. Got these little bakeable rhinestones over here. Let's put one here. Hey, come back here. One over here, one here, there we go, and one over in this spot we just worked on. Great. I'm going to take my blade, kind of ease those into position. Here we go. Now I'm going to use my Sculpey blade that's been sitting here to just lightly press those in. Okay. I could actually press the pattern too. Sometimes I use a plain piece of paper to do this, especially if I'm working on like an ornament or something that has a rounded surface. There we go. We're all set, ready to bake right in there. Great little fun project for a Saturday when you're avoiding your chores like I am. See you next time.